Serious, those of you who worked undercover, what is the most taboo thing you witnessed, but could not intervene as to not blow your cover? I work as a researcher studying illegal wildlife trade. In markets, I have seen critically endangered animals being sold openly for pretty low prices. I've also seen plenty of animals dead or dying in these markets with no food or water in the baking sun. But worse than that, I have friends who have had to watch slow lorises having their teeth pulled out with nail clippers and not been able to do anything. I once took my vehicle to an independent shop for routine maintenance. I said I was dropping it off for as long as it might take as I was going to take a long trip the following month. I sat across the street in a diner eating soup and drinking coffee. I got a call that my vehicle needed about $4,500 worth of work an hour and a half later. It never left the parking spot. I told them I didn't want anything done. They said it was half apart already. Duck you, Firestone. I am an assistant service manager at a dealership. That Firestone was turned into a parking lot. From 2007 through 2008 I worked on a smuggling interdiction task force. My team dealt with human trafficking. My job was all bullshit and I regret that we couldn't really do anything to put a dent in the problem. I worked undercover in that I did not wear a uniform or carry a badge and my authority was civilian, so I only reported to Lees. The most taboo thing I witnessed that I was not allowed to do anything about was women, mothers, aunts, grandmothers, offering children for sex in exchange for cash. The truth of the matter is that, at least in Western society, the threshold of evidence required to hold women responsible for sex trafficking is not even in the same ballpark as for men. The number of cases we had to tolerate sickens me. I don't know which we need to address first as a society: the rampant abuse or the gender bias that keeps it going. But the truth be told, I met just as many women pimps and abusers as I did men. The biggest difference I could see is that women were more often pimping out the under 12 demographic vs the male pimps that were pimping out the teens. I never saw one female prosecuted, but we were successful in moving a handful of kids to foster care. Worked as a ghost passenger for an airline. Basically I flew around and graded flight attendants' performance. While still parked at the gate with the door opened, one flight attendant began berating passengers who were using their smartphones, which was completely permitted at the gate. She threatened to have the person in front of me thrown off the plane if she didn't put hers away. She also threatened me. After we left the gate and were taxiing to the runway, I looked back to see her sitting in her jump seat using her phone. Took a photo of it and included that in my report. She initially denied using the phone and claimed I was being unruly on the aircraft. After she saw the photo, she changed her tune. How do you even get a job being a ghost passenger? I was hired as a flight attendant and was later promoted to the position of check flight attendant, which includes limited supervisory positions including ghost rides. I did most my ghost rides after being promoted to instructor. Couple showed up to a party with their kids. Boy about 11. Girl around 9. Get paid by host. Have kids do it with each other for entertainment of some of the people present. For further tips, let a couple sickers join in after a few minutes. Kids have been safely wards of the state for several years now, for your information. Was secret shopping at a high-end restaurant. Around $100 per plate. The busser came over and refilled my water glass that I had already drank out of and overfilled it. So he poured part back in the pitcher from my glass and proceeded to refill everyone else at the table from the same pitcher. I really wanted to throw a fit, but could only include it in my report. Hey. I used to be a busser in a high-priced restaurant. One time I was working a double hungover and overfilled someone's glass. But I didn't dump it back in the pitcher. I just kept pouring as it overflowed onto the table, muttering, "Oh my. Oh no. That's not good." I finally have one. I was JTF6 and we covertly patrolled for drug harvesting activity, aka drug plots. My partner and I had eyes on this one location. We had to observe them for a period of time to generate a decent salute report. We see this wild as road warrior oogla looking kid come hauling us up on his dirt bike with who we thought was his mom or grandma. Then we witnessed some incestuous or at the very least underage relations by the feral kid and the she beastie brought with him. The whole time we're just sitting there in our hide grossed out and unable to move or intervene or we'd blow our cover and the whole op. I am a private investigator. Contracted by government to check massage shops to see if they are soliciting. I usually get sent to shops which have had multiple complaints and an investigation is in its final stages and they need evidence to support their case. So, I go to one place. Everything seems normal except for being asked to strip bare for an oil massage. Eventually I am asked to flip over. Therapist without asking just starts rubbing some gel on my parts. At this point, I am obligated to refuse and finish the session. I ask her to stop but halfway through the sentence I am hit with the most intense pain. Turns out, she was new and was unaware that alcohol gel is not the same as massage oil. Long story short, manager was convicted of coercing staff on the basis of their visas being revoked if they didn't comply. And I had to stand in court and tell the events of that day. I worked as a secret shopper for a while for a small store. The most egregious thing I found were employees would hide inventory if they knew a sale was coming up. I'd also go in and ask questions about what equipment I should use just to test their general knowledge. Most failed but they were young kids getting paid sheets so I felt bad squealing on them. I also forgot to add that I had to put up with being hit on by teenagers and creepy older guys. I had to play along and see if they knew their shit despite throwing terrible game. I was working a detail a few years back in the Parks district of our county. We've had complaints and issues with men engaged in sexual activity in vehicles and restrooms. I volunteered to be a decoy with a wire to see if the issue was out of hand. I was hanging out in my vehicle and decided to go near the men's restroom for a bit. It wasn't long when a vehicle with out of county plates parked, an elderly gentleman driving. I kept my position at the restroom entrance when he walked up. I could tell he wasn't there to use the restroom. He chose the first stall and acted as if he had to urinate, then I heard it. He was masturbating pretty vigorously and the sound was awful. He leaned back out of the stall to see if I was still there. I wanted to get the hell out of there. The look on his face. Licking his lips with drool running down his chin. I'm not quite clear of the conversation but he either finished or lost interest. As he was walking out of the restroom he reached out and grabbed my twig and berries. I froze. Was shocked and didn't know what to do from there. My partners were in our enclosed garage watching and listening to the entire thing. After running this guy's information, it came back the car belonged to a diocese out of Dayton, Ohio and the elderly male was the priest. I never volunteered for that sheet again. Edit spelling. I used to investigate insurance fraud. The one thing I saw that made me the maddest was when I was working in the rundown area near the Philly Zoo and saw a strung out mother walking with her toddler and jerking his arm and screaming at him for not keeping up with her quick walking pace. The kid was not even 2 years old. I really wanted to get out of the car. The funniest one was where I had to go undercover in a bar to investigate this one person. You ever see the Stallone movie Over the Top? Yeah. That's pretty much what this guy ended up doing right on the bar. Right in front of my hidden camera. And looking direct into my camera lens. It was awesome. The arm wrestling match went on 4 minutes and this by a guy to hurt to work. At times it was very entertaining to work undercover. I am so late to this party. But here it goes. I'm a TV producer. I was working on a popular documentary a while ago. We were following a woman who was addicted to heroin and had resorted to prostitution in order to make money to support her habits. One day, a friend of hers got thrown into jail. She decided she needed to work really hard to bail them out. So she called her friend who owned a crack house that he let girls like her turn tricks in at about $10 a pop. To answer Arp's question, I witnessed this girl share needles with many people and watched as John after John came into the house and disappeared into the bedroom with her for a little bit. Former loss prevention here. Best job ever by the way. Witnessed so much sex in the stock rooms. Couples. Singles. trios. You name it. We had cameras everywhere, of course. Especially in the stockrooms due to rampant employee theft. We had countless hours of employee 6 on tape. We couldn't reveal the cameras, which would tip off the thieves. So all we could do was watch. Pretty late to the party. But I was an undercover assets protection specialist at Target for a year in my early 20s. The main taboo thing I noticed, and one of the reasons I wound up hating it and ultimately quitting, is the whole security industry is racist as duck. Everyone from the uniformed guards at the door to the police that did the arrests. We had policies in place to prevent targeting minorities. But it didn't do anything. Nearly every time we called the police to arrest a black person, they would at minimum get tackled. Even if they weren't resisting. We had one white guy who was addicted to heroin that we had caught stealing video games several times. And had even punched my boss. And he was arrested so gently you would have thought he was made of porcelain. That job wore on my soul. For real. I worked for an armored car service for a while as an undercover guard. When a place had a lot of money, or if it was a risky area, 2 plainclothes guards would arrive before the truck. I would scout the place and outside to make sure the uniformed guys could get in and out safe. We wore a color of the day and the local cops knew who we were, as did the uniformed guards. It was a pretty easy job, and I only once waved off a pickup because of a bunch of Latin kings sitting on benches out front. I hung out a while to see what was going on and hoping they would leave so we could make the pickup. As I sat on a bus bench across the road, I watched one of the guys take out his needlepoint. I never would think that a gang member would tote his needlepoint to a stick-up job. Edit, only the top paragraph showed up. I guess I ducked up format or something. I'm not good on my phone. I was running a wire. We were looking to arrest a guy who beat a 2-year-old so bad she had broken femurs. We wired up mom and had her go to the boyfriend's house and try and get him to confess. Mom started out great. Led the boyfriend along and started to ducking blow him. He then ducked her. The man who beat her daughter so bad she was life-lighted. She ducked him on wire. I was punching my dashboard and wishing I could arrest her as well. It was awful. I used to training at a call center. I always included being aware of social engineering attempts in my role plays. Management liked this so much they started having me do this as a secret caller. I hate to say, but I got a lot more people than I should have. Even started doing it ad hoc for other divisions when word got round. Wast was an agent that I'm not sure if she really just didn't care or was just so overly helpful she didn't think twice. But man, I could have stolen 3 or 4 people identities if I was actually running a scam. When I worked QA for a video game publisher, they had me work an E3 as a secret player. Basically, I got to play new games for that publisher and act like they were amazing in front of press. While I was taking a break, I saw one of the producers hooking up with a booth babe. He didn't recognize me, but I knew he was married and had a kid on the way. I didn't say shit. He got laid off when the rest of us did about a year later. But that's just kinda how E3 goes. Worked as a private investigator for a while, mostly did work comp cases, seen some shiftiness. Drug deals. etc. Worst thing was conducting surveillance on a person at an apartment complex. Get there before light to set up my rig. Little bit before sunrise, this Mexican couple, 50s-ish, in a truck pull up in front of my position. Guys pulling a trailer. Gets out, rummage through dumpster for metal and stuff. Okay. Not so bad. Then the woman with him gets out and between my vehicle and said dumpster proceeds to pop a squat and sheet on the ground. Way to start my morning, guys. Thanks. Edit. Spells good.